Sponsored by Baksu. Hi guys, it's Claire. Welcome back. Today I'm excited to be bringing you a video that I have never done before, and that is a books I'm getting people for Christmas / the holidays this year, which I'm really happy about, especially because in recent years, neither my family nor my friend group have been super big into giving holiday gifts. My friends and I will often do a $0 Secret Santa, and then for the past few Christmases, my family has mostly just done like little stocking stuffers. But this year, especially because we've all been so far apart and because it's a great time to support your local independent bookstores, I thought it would be really nice to get some books for some of my nearest and dearest this holiday season. And I've actually had a lot of fun with this, especially because most of my friends and family members are readers in some capacity, and so it's been really nice to kind of sit and think about each person and what kind of book they might enjoy reading this year. And so what I ended up with here is a combination of books that I have read and loved and am excited to share, and also some books that are educated guesses on my part that I suspect might be a good fit for that particular person. So let's get into it, starting with family members. So my dad, historically, throughout my life, has read mostly crime fiction, what he would call cops and robbers books or brain candy. I think he owns every copy of the John Sandford, Lucas Davenport Prey series, and outside of crime fiction, he also really loves Stephen King. He really doesn't read much literary fiction or even kind of general commercial fiction at all. However, earlier this year, I got a text message from him saying that he had bought a copy of Milkman based on my Best Books of 2019 video. And I remember being like, I don't really know if you're gonna like that book, but he did. He read it over the course of many weeks earlier this year, and at the end was like, that's one of the best books I've read in the last 20 years, which honestly made a lot of sense after I thought about it, because my dad is someone who loves words and language, and so much of what's wonderful about Milkman are the clever and playful ways that Anna Burns uses language, which got me thinking about how I think my dad would really enjoy quite a lot of literary fiction and nonfiction if he picked up more of it, but those kinds of books just aren't like marketed or directed at readers like him. But he did recently ask me, kind of tentatively and in a kind of cute way, if I thought that he would enjoy reading Joan Didion, just because he's heard me and my older brother talk about Joan Didion quite a lot. And I was like, you know what? I think my dad might like Joan Didion, depending on the book, just because, again, she has such a kind of masterful command of language and vocabulary that I think my dad would really admire. And so that's a long-winded way of saying that I got him The Year of Magical Thinking by Joan Didion for Christmas this year, which I think is probably her most accessible book in terms of subject matter, just because what she's talking about here in terms of death and mortality is very universal. And I also think my dad has been a little bit in his feelings about mortality this year, so it feels like a good time for this book. So we'll see, but I kind of think that he'll like it. Then I have my mom, who reads mostly commercial kind of book club type fiction. She really likes historical fiction specifically, and I would say that when she reads more literary fiction, it's the kind of literary fiction that usually has a lot of buzz and kind of broader commercial appeal. So she's a big fan, for example, of the Wolf Hall trilogy by Hilary Mantel. And then a couple of other books that she really enjoyed this year were The Giver of Stars by Jojo Moyes and The Dutch House by Ann Patchett. So I think that those kind of multi-generational family sagas or a book with a kind of historical bent are usually the pretty safe bets for my mom. So I was thinking about getting her Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell because I feel like she would probably like that book. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, ugh, that's too obvious. I need to get more creative. And so I decided to get her a Louise Erdrich book. I have not read Louise Erdrich before, so this is a little bit of a shot in the dark, but I feel like the way that people love her and the way that they talk about her books makes me think that they fall in that kind of sweet spot between literary and commercial that my mom seems to like. And so I ended up getting her Love Medicine. I was a little bit torn at the bookstore trying to decide which of her books to pick just because so many of them are so popular. But the synopsis of this book describes it as an epic story of two families set on and around an Ojibwe reservation in North Dakota, which really sounds like something my mom would be into. So yeah, I'm excited about this one. I'm excited to see if she likes it. And then also on a selfish level, I'm like, cool, now I can read her copy of it whenever I go visit. Then I have my brother Sam, who reads mostly literary fiction and classics. And I feel like I've really struck out on bookish Christmas gifts for him in the past. I think one year I got him Pachinko and The Idiot by Elif Bachman, both of which he ended up donating within a couple of months. He also recently read PAVANE for a Dead Princess, which is one of my favorite books, and he texted me and said he thought it was dumb. So I thought I might have better luck getting him something I haven't read and loved. And so somewhat on impulse, I got him a copy of Beowulf, a New Translation by Dahvana Headley, which is a new feminist translation of the age-old epic poem Beowulf, which my brother and I both had to read in high school. And I remember him really enjoying it. I think he's a Beowulf fan. And so regardless of whether or not he loves this new translation, I feel like he'll find it at least very interesting. This book also notably opens with the line, bro. So what better book to give to your literal bro? Next up, I have my younger brother, Jack, who is not a big fan of recommendations of any kind. He likes to kind of do his own thing and discover things on his own. And he's also been on a kick recently where he's only really interested in reading nonfiction books that are informative or edifying in some way. And so I did text him asking if he would be interested in Sapiens, because I feel like every person I've ever met who doesn't like fiction loves Sapiens, but I was promptly and politely rebuffed on that idea. And so I just asked him to give me a couple ideas of what he wants, and he said that he would love to get a copy of Lying by Sam Harris, which I guess is a book about how we can, quote, radically simplify our lives and improve society by merely telling the truth in situations where others often lie, which does kind of sound like Jack all over. Sam Harris's bio also says that he has a nonprofit devoted to, quote, spreading scientific knowledge and secular values in society, which again is totally Jack's jams. I do have to say I was really surprised at how tiny and cute the trim size on this book is, so it does feel like a kind of cute little stocking stuffer at the very least. Then I have my friend Yangshin, who I affectionately call my third brother sometimes, the brother I chose. Yangshin typically reads a lot of business books or nonfiction books that have some kind of self-help insights or kind of real life practical application. So books like Billion Dollar Loser or Why We Sleep as a couple of examples. However, earlier this fall, he texted me saying he was really in the mood for fiction or a novel that would just provide some kind of escape from everything that's been happening. And so predictably, I was like, you should read Red, White, and Royal Blue. And he did. He read it in a day and really enjoyed it. And he did say he was open to other trashy book recommendations, which I think is his way of saying romance novels. And so I got him Glitterland by Alexis Hall, who is also the author of Boyfriend Material, which I read earlier this year. And I enjoyed Boyfriend Material, but it was packaged so similarly to Red, White, and Royal Blue that when I think of it, I can't help think of it as being good, but not as good as Red, White, and Royal Blue. And I've also heard that some of Alexis Hall's other novels are even better than Boyfriend Material, so I ended up getting this one in part based on the kind of Goodreads reviews that I saw, and then also partly just because I really love this cover. And it just sounds great. It's about this literary golden boy turned depressed crime fiction writer who meets an aspiring model and then presumably they fall in love. Honestly, I might read this one, but I also think it's the type of thing Yangshin will probably read in a day, so I feel like the bar for him enjoying this one is pretty set pretty reasonably. But yeah, excited about this one. I love an opportunity to foist more romance novels on my friends. And lastly, for family, I got my grandma a large print copy of Commonwealth by Ann Patchett. And my grandma honestly doesn't read a whole lot these days, but she did recently mention that she was wanting to supplement some of her Hulu and Netflix binging with more book reading. My grandma's favorite author was Pat Conroy, who sounds like he wrote these kind of epic, sprawling family sagas. And I get the impression that Ann Patchett's books are kind of like that. I honestly don't know, but I feel like Commonwealth was very popular when it came out a few years ago, and I also just feel like older women really like Ann Patchett. My mom really liked The Dutch House, so Ann Patchett just seemed like a good bet. And also my grandma isn't a particularly picky or persnickety kind of reader, and oftentimes she like can't remember anything that happened in a book a few months after reading it, so again, this feels like one where like the stakes are pretty low. Moving on to friends, first up I have my friend Dichava, who is one of the other biggest readers in our friend group, and I feel like she reads quite a bit of contemporary fiction, but is also equally open to kind of more mainstream commercial books, and then maybe more literary and obscure titles too. For example, the books that she has borrowed from me most recently were The Days of Abandonment by Elena Ferrante, Luster, PAVANE for a Dead Princess, and Red, White, and Royal Blue. So she reads a good mix of things. But then when I was thinking about what to get her, I was like, how can I not get Dichava my favorite contemporary novel of this year, which is White Ivy by Susie Yang. I honestly could have gotten this book for most of my friends this year. It's just that kind of novel that I want to throw at like literally everyone, but I think Dichava in particular will appreciate the paciness of it and kind of the dark sexiness of it and the way that it straddles both the literary and the commercial. And then on a selfish level, I think she's also just the most likely to read this one the soonest, and I'm just looking forward to hearing her thoughts on it. Next up, I have Amy. Amy is another friend who reads quite a bit and who I think would really like White Ivy, but she already asked someone else for that for Christmas. And so I thought I would go out on a little bit more of a limb and get her Love in a Fallen City by Eileen Chang. I love Eileen Chang, and I was trying to decide if it made the most sense to get Amy this collection of short stories or Eileen Chang's novel Half a Lifelong Romance, which I also love. They're both excellent and great places to start with Eileen Chang, but I could see Amy potentially not being quite as moved or emotionally distraught by the tragic love story in Half a Lifelong Romance, and so I thought Love in a Fallen City might be a little bit more to her taste, which I would say is, I don't know if cerebral is the right word, but I think that she will often pick up books more for their interesting ideas and the quality of the writing than for plot or emotional manipulation or sentimentality. And so I think that she might find Love in a Fallen City more intriguing on those levels. I think she's also pretty into books and media about the kind of social milieu of particular places or the subtle social dynamics at play in a particular group of people. And Love in a Fallen City does offer a Jane Austen-esque, or at times a Fitzgerald-esque look at Hong Kong and Shanghai society in a way that I think Amy might enjoy. Then I have my friend Libby, and I feel like Libby and I are similar readers in the sense that we are both emotionally tender in the same kind of way. Libby also loves PAVANE for a Dead Princess, for example, and we also both get kind of obsessively enthusiastic about the things that we're into. And even when we're not reading the same kinds of books, we'll often have like great conversations just about the things that we've read recently and have really enjoyed. So Libby is on a queer books kick right now, particularly books about queer women that aren't like sad or depressing. She's been reading a lot of queer romance and queer fantasy right now, so if anyone has recs in those genres, definitely let me know. But I also came across a list of queer books on bookshop.org that I sent to her, and she mentioned being particularly interested in ZAMI, A New Spelling of My Name by the great writer and activist Audre Lorde. And this is an autobiography that apparently combines elements of biography and history and myth, which all sounds pretty great, so I think Libby will really enjoy this one. Then I have my friend Charlotte, and I feel like it wouldn't truly be a gift-giving season without me trying to shove PAVANE for a Dead Princess by Park Min-gyu down another one of my friends' throats. And this year, Charlotte is the chosen one. Charlotte reads mostly contemporary literary fiction and nonfiction, and she tends to pick up books based on the recommendations of friends. And so I think that she does end up reading mostly kind of buzzy titles. Some books that she has recently read are In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado, How to Do Nothing by Jenny Odell, and Fleischman is in Trouble by Taffy Ackner. And so I do think PAVANE for a Dead Princess is maybe a little bit outside her comfort zone or a little bit obscure for her, but she did ask for something that would either make her laugh or cry. And the last 30 pages of this book made me cry like a baby at 1 a.m. in the morning. And Charlotte is more of a soft sap than she usually lets on, so I'm hoping that this book will have a similar effect on her. I do think there's a chance that she finds the ending of this book melodramatic and dumb rather than emotionally devastating, but that's a risk I'm willing to take. Then I have my friend Abby, and I feel like Abby and I are really soul sisters when it comes to our mutual love of reality dating shows and rom-coms, and she's also one of my only friends who will sometimes pick up a romance novel of her own accord. So a few weeks ago when I was reading The X Talk by Rachel Lynn Solomon, which is an absolutely delightful contemporary romance, I texted Abby being like, you will 100% love this book. I'll eat my shoe if you don't. I want her to read it so much that I ended up pre-ordering her a copy of it for Christmas, even though it doesn't come out until late January. So she will be getting a pre-order IOU this holiday season, which isn't ideal, but there truly was no other book that I was more excited about putting into her hands than this one, so hopefully she won't mind too much. Next up is my friend Kathleen, who I honestly don't think reads that much, mostly because she's in school and really busy with work and also just has like other hobbies that she's interested in. But I think like Charlotte, when she does read books, she has a tendency to read kind of buzzier titles. So I ended up getting her If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha, which I think is the perfect kind of dark, sexy, moody book for Kathleen. And it's also a pretty quick read, so hopefully she can kind of read it in a couple of sittings or over a weekend if she wants to. I think she'll find all of the stuff in this book about Korean beauty standards and plastic surgery really fascinating. And then I think she'll also be really engrossed by the kind of salacious look at the sordid underbelly of Korean society that this book explores. And I also think that she'll just like the book cover a lot. It'll look good on her shelf regardless of whether or not she has time to read it. Then I have my friend Dara, who also doesn't read a ton, but he loves to cook. And so I got him a cookbook called Jubilee: Recipes from 2 Centuries of African American Cooking by Toni Tipton-Martin. This is a James Beard Award winner, and flipping through it, it just seems to feature a lot of the kind of hearty comfort food dishes that Dara often likes to make. He's also much more ambitious in the kitchen than I am, so some of the recipes in here that I thought looked a little bit intimidating, things like buttermilk fried chicken, are things that Dara would totally make. So I'm hoping it's a nice combination of the kinds of things that he already likes to make and then some new things that he hasn't made before. And I'm also considering this a joint gift for him and his husband, because Josh also likes to cook but can also enjoy whatever Dara ends up making out of this. Those are the books that I'm getting people for the holidays this season. If you have books that you are excited to gift people this year, let me know in the comments below. Also, if you have any books that are just kind of go-to gifting books that you usually rely on, I'd be really curious to hear about those too. And lastly, before I head out, since we're talking about holiday gift ideas, I wanted to mention that this video is kindly sponsored by Baksu. Baksu is a monthly snack box subscription service that delivers premium Japanese snacks right to your door. Each box contains a hand-picked original assortment of Japanese snacks and candies, along with a tea pairing, all of which are curated around cultural themes and seasonal flavors that give you an authentic taste of Japan. Baksu honors Japanese heritage and artisanal makers by partnering with them to bring authentic Japanese flavors around the world. Baksu sent me one of their Seasons of Japan boxes, which contains a lot of fun different snacks inside, both savory and sweet. I also love that each box comes with a cultural guide, which gives you some info about each of the different kinds of snacks that are included in the box. I am a big fan of the dango mochi, which comes in this cute little package. That's very good, very fresh and kind of almost like a fluffy gummy. And then I've also been pretty eager to try the yuzu sake candy, which is a Baksu exclusive and apparently does contain alcohol. Very tasty as well. One thing I really love about Japanese candy is that it doesn't contain as much like sugar and whatever as American candy. It's not as much of like an assault on your taste buds. It's just really nice and kind of the correct reasonable amount of sweetness. First-time Baksu customers will receive a Seasons of Japan box. Every month you'll receive different snacks centered around a different theme, and each Baksu box is shipped directly from Japan. So if you're interested in gifting yourself or a loved one a fun snack box subscription this holiday season, you can get 10% off and save up to $47 on your own authentic Japanese snack box from Baksu using the link in my description box and the code ClaireReads10. That's all I have for today. As always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!